Hey nerds, and welcome to Flash, Theories and Conspiracies. I'm Brian from Good Nerd, Bad Nerd. So this week we had the season finale for Flash, and so much happened, but first we're going to go through the highlights for this week. First two things, and just like a lot of people, these were things I expected or I called, and that was one, that HR did swap out with Iris, and I actually like how they explained that he did it. I thought that was a great way for that to happen. It made sense. It wasn't some like weird thing where he actually went to Earth 2 and swapped there, but people didn't know it. The way they explained it made a lot of sense, and I appreciate that. The other thing was Julian working on a cure. That was the only reason why he wouldn't have been around, last episode, why he was just kind of off, wherever he was. But so those things I called him. I like that Julian was working on a cure. I mean, that it means his focus is entirely on Caitlin. It's interesting that this Julian was able to come up with a cure where future Julian was not, and wondering what the difference between those two Julians was. But it's cool that he did, kind of figure out the cure. Although, and this is a highlight for me as well, I'm glad Caitlin didn't take it. I think Caitlin as Killer Frost or whoever she's going to be in the next season is going to be more interesting, and it's going to be a better storyline for Caitlin. Then the next thing, Cisco. This entire episode, Cisco was great. I'm really surprised evil Barry Savitar thought Cisco would actually turn the Speed Force bazooka into what he wanted. But the fact that he used it to turn it into a key to release Jay, I thought was great. Really a solid move by Cisco, and it was cool for him to pull that in the last minute. And then the Gypsy and Cisco throwdown throughout the entire episode was pretty cool. Now, an interesting thing, if you guys also watch Supergirl, Cisco essentially calling out to Gypsy through the multiverse was very similar to what was happening with John and McGann in Supergirl. So I don't know if we've got the same writers or if it's just a coincidence, but I thought, okay, they're using that idea a lot. So that was, another cool thing. Next, Harry is back. I really liked Earth 2 Harry. HR was great. He was nice levity. It was a nice change, but there was something about Harry. I just liked how no nonsense he was. Both of them were very good about giving advice to different people, but in different ways. And I think I liked Harry's tough love a little better than HR's kind of comedic, self-deprecating advice. So I'm actually really excited that we're going to have Harry back for the next season. Who knows if he will stay and if we're going to get another Wells, but Harry is, he's one of my favorite versions of Wells, of the ones we've had so far. But the last highlight for me of this episode, Joe and Barry, and anytime Joe is on screen, essentially, if you make Joe sad, everything he's going to say, it's going to like break my heart just as a dad. That moment when he's saying goodbye at the very end, and Barry's like, a boy couldn't have asked for a better dad, and a dad couldn't have asked for a better son. That whole sequence. Anytime Joe is on screen talking about family stuff just kills me. And they could, it's just, what can you do? He's so good at that role that it's just outstanding. Now that takes me to something I started over on Supergirl, but I'm bringing it to here, and that's the ridiculousness. Three things that were just ridiculous this episode. One, the ultimate plan for Savitar to fragment himself throughout the not even the multiverse, just throughout time, maybe the multiverse, but so that he would exist at all points. What does that even look like? He's not going to have a physical body at all points. It's just the plan, I don't know. It sounds cool, but I don't think it's actually makes a lot of sense. And it's actually very close to something Doctor Who did with Clara Oswald, the Impossible Girl. She threw herself into the Doctor's time stream and fragmented herself throughout all of his history, helping him and guiding him, things like that. So I thought his ultimate plan was pretty weak. But part of that also then, we had Black Zoom, or Black Flash, old Zoom, and he was defeated so ridiculously fast that that just felt like it felt like the Time Force was just going through the motions of like, oh, we're gonna try and stop you, but I'll get to that on why I think the Time Force really wasn't trying to stop him themselves. But Caitlin being able to freeze him because he's a speedster. He should be able to move faster than Caitlin can even think, and yet she can still react fast enough to freeze him and break him. So, again, I think Black Flash was defeated easily, and I think he was defeated on purpose. The last thing, DeVoe's name dropped again. When they invite Savitar into the lab because they're going to help him, which was a terrible idea, and I don't even get that because I don't understand what Savitar was hoping would happen. Yes, maybe we can help you, maybe we can fix what's happening to you. And he's like, well, what's going to happen to me then? What did he expect to happen? Did he expect Iris, who he had just tried to kill, and he had just actually murdered HR, did she expect him to leave good Barry to be with him? It didn't make a lot of sense, but name dropping DeVoe again, the show is really trying to get us to be focused on him, that he's going to be the big bad for next season, and I don't buy that for a minute. I think that's all red herring. We've never really gone into it knowing who the villain would be from a show's point of view, before we've gotten some of that narrative. So I honestly don't think DeVoe is going to be the villain for the next season. But the last two things to talk about. One, what was the overall theory behind this season, and then two, who do I think will be the villain for next season? The overall theory for this season, they really wanted to do Flashpoint. It's such a big Flash moment, and they really had to do it to get Barry really officially past everything that had happened to him with his family. And I think the entire rest of the season was the Speed Force testing Barry. The Speed Force let Savitar happen. The Speed Force could have easily been hunting him down nonstop with time wraiths and Black Flash and all of this stuff. And the Speed Force is an all-powerful cosmic force. It's, the force that is in between all of the different universes and throughout the multiverse. It exists everywhere, essentially. It could have stopped Savitar if it wanted to, but Barry made a huge mistake with Flashpoint. And he kept making mistakes, and the Speed Force said, no, if you are going to be worthy of being a speedster, we are going to test you. And they let Savitar exist. They let all of this happen. Like I said, Killer Frost defeated the Black Flash really, really easily, and it doesn't make any sense. So the Speed Force was testing him, and taking him away, I feel, is them preparing him for things to come. And we'll get to that next. But what do you guys think? Do you think this entire season was just a test of Barry? Because otherwise, the Speed Force seems pretty weak sauce and doesn't really have any power outside of its conduits in the real world. So that's just kind of what I think. Next, what is going to be the big threat for season 4? Now, they've said the big villain will not be a speedster. And that's why a lot of people really do think it'll be DeVoe, because they have hit so hard on that. But I don't think it's going to be DeVoe. I'm not entirely sure who it's going to be. I do think we are going to see some fallout from this storm. We're going to get this was the Speed Storm. This was a recent thing from the Rebirth comics where basically a huge lightning storm happened, and like 20 or 30 people in the general community developed speedster powers. They were all stolen by a guy who was kind of a white speedster. I think he called him the Godspeed. So as interesting as that would be, it is another speedster. So if they are going that route, I don't think he will be the end villain. I think he will be kind of a 2 to 3 episode arc, but it'll probably be Wally who is dealing with that, and then Barry will come back after that. And Barry will come back, and that's the question. In the comics, at one point when Barry's gone, Wally also goes into the Speed Force, but he returns with new abilities. And as much as I don't want them to kind of steal that storyline from Wally, I do think we're going to see Barry come back with a new costume. I think we're going to see him come back with new abilities. Maybe his costume is going to be that thing where he can manifest a costume from the Speed Force, another ability that Wally is the one who figured out first. But that would eliminate the whole mannequin thing, and it would actually add for some pretty cool visuals. But they are taking it from Wally. So, what do you think? Do you think DeVoe really will be the villain for next season? And what do you think the fate of Barry is? Leave your comments down below, and let's discuss this, because we've got some time between now and next season. So until next season, guys, I'm Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd, and this has been Flash, Theories, and Conspiracies.